The room was silent except for the soft beeping of machines. Red lights suddenly flashed across the main screen of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station. Tom Reed, the night shift operator, nearly spilled his coffee when the alarm sounded. "What the?" he muttered, putting down his cup and tapping the screen. His eyes widened. "Sir, you need to see this." Station Chief Morgan hurried over, his face serious. "What is it?" "Reed. An SOS signal, sir, from deep space. And it's using old Earth codes." Morgan leaned closer to the screen, his face lit by the pulsing red alert. "That's impossible. Those codes haven't been used in over 200 years. The signal is weak, but clear," Tom said. "And there's something else. It contains quantum encrypted data that matches our oldest protocols." Morgan straightened up. "Call the Defense Council. Now." Captain James Walker stood on his porch, watching the sunset over the mountains. At 63, his hair had turned fully gray, but his tall frame remained strong. After 40 years in service, retirement felt strange. Empty. The call he received that evening changed everything. "Captain Walker," said the voice on the other end. "This is Admiral Jones. We need you back." 6 hours later, Walker walked into the United Earth Defense Headquarters, his old uniform fitting him perfectly. The room fell silent as he entered. Some officers were too young to have served with him, but all knew his name. Admiral Jones, an old friend, nodded at him. "James, thank you for coming." "What's so important that you're calling back retired captains?" Walker asked. Jones touched a screen, and a star map appeared. 3 days ago, we received a distress signal from this region." He pointed to a blinking red dot far beyond known space. "It's using Earth codes from the early colony ships." Walker frowned. "The Pathfinder mission. That disappeared 300 years ago." "Yes." Jones swiped the screen, showing complex data streams. "Dr. Lisa Reed is our top communications expert. She'll explain." A woman with short black hair stepped forward. In her 40s, Dr. Reed had sharp eyes that seemed to see through people. "The signal contains fragments of human language, Captain," she said. "But it's the encryption that's most interesting. It's evolved from our early quantum protocols, but the core algorithm is definitely human-made." Walker studied the data. "You're saying there are humans out there? Descendants of the Pathfinder?" "It's the only explanation that fits," Dr. Reed replied. "Someone took our oldest space communication methods and improved them over centuries." Admiral Jones touched another screen. The signal also contained this. A grainy image appeared showing what looked like massive ships firing upon a planet. "They're under attack," Walker said quietly. "Yes," Jones confirmed, "and they're asking for help." "What forces can we send?" Walker asked, already calculating travel times and logistics. Jones smiled slightly. "That's why you're here, James. The Council has authorized deployment of the Thunderbolt fleet." The room fell silent again. Walker looked up sharply. "The Thunderbolts. They've never left the solar system." "They will now," Jones said. "And you'll command them." The Thunderbolt fleet, 5 of humanity's most advanced warships, built for a war that never came. Their power was legendary, but untested. "When do we leave?" Walker asked. "Immediately. The fleet is being prepared at Mars Orbital Dock." Jones handed Walker a command chip. "You'll have full authority. Dr. Reed will join you as your communications officer." Walker looked at the distant star on the map where someone, somehow, was sending an SOS across the void. "How many ships can we expect to face?" he asked. Dr. Reed stepped forward again. "Based on the signal data, many, possibly hundreds." Walker nodded slowly. "Then we'll need every advantage." He turned to Jones. "Tell the dock to prepare the Thunderbolts for immediate deployment. Full weapons, maximum crew." As Walker left the room, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Someone out there, descendants of Earth, needed help, and humanity's most powerful warships were about to answer the call. The huge glass window of Mars Orbital Dock Station gave Captain Walker the perfect view of what waited outside. 5 massive ships hung in space, their dark metal hulls gleaming under the station lights. Walker had seen pictures, but nothing compared to seeing the Thunderbolt fleet with his own eyes. "Impressive, aren't they?" Dr. Reed stood beside him. "I studied their specs for years, but this is my first time seeing them in person." Walker nodded. "Built for a war that never happened. Until now, perhaps." A young officer approached them. "Captain Walker, the crews are ready for inspection." Walker followed the officer through the station's long corridors. Behind him walked Dr. Reed and the 4 other captains who would command the individual ships of the fleet. All of them were younger than Walker. All of them watched him with respect in their eyes. They entered a large room where 500 men and women stood in perfect lines. The best crew members Earth could provide. "At ease," Walker said. "You all know why we're here. Someone out there is calling for help. They're human, like us, but they've been alone for 300 years. And now they're under attack." He paused, looking at their faces. "We don't know what we'll find. We don't know how strong the enemy is. But we know our duty." The crew stood taller. "The Thunderbolt fleet leaves in 6 hours." Walker finished. "Report to your ships." Dismissed. Walker stood on the bridge of the UES Vanguard, the flagship of the Thunderbolt fleet. The ship hummed with power around him. Screens showed the status of each system. All green. "Captain on the bridge," called out First Officer Mike Davis. The bridge crew stood at attention. Walker nodded to them. "Status report," he asked. "All systems ready, sir," Davis replied. "The fleet is fully prepared for departure." Walker sat in the command chair and pressed a button. "This is Captain Walker to all Thunderbolt ships. Report readiness." One by one, the other captains responded. "UES Hammerfall, ready." The voice of Captain Bell sounded confident. His ship carried the heaviest weapons in the fleet. "UES Phantom, ready." Captain Miller's ship was built for stealth and reconnaissance. "UES Aegis, ready." Captain Taylor commanded the fleet's defensive specialist ship. "UES Nexus, ready." Captain Wilson's ship handled communications and electronic warfare. Walker nodded. "Begin undocking sequence." Outside, huge metal arms slowly pulled away from the ships. Warning lights flashed as the dock prepared to release the fleet. Dr. Reed worked at her station, monitoring the mysterious signal. "Captain, the SOS is still active. It's getting weaker. Time is running out for them," Walker said. He pressed another button. "This is Vanguard to Mars Control. Request permission for fleet departure." "Permission granted, Vanguard," replied the controller's voice. "Good hunting." The 5 ships slowly moved away from the dock, their engines glowing blue against the darkness of space. The Vanguard led the way, followed by the others in perfect formation. Walker looked at the main screen showing Earth and Mars growing smaller behind them. "Prepare for lightspeed jump. Navigation, set course for the signal origin." "Course set, sir," the navigator replied. "Engine room status. Fusion drives at full power, Captain," came the response. "Lightspeed systems charged and ready." Just then, an alarm sounded. Dr. Reed looked at her screen with concern. "Captain, we're detecting unusual energy readings throughout the solar system." Walker frowned. "Source?" "Unknown, sir." She worked quickly at her console. "They appeared the moment we powered up the fleet's jump drives." "Some kind of reaction to our technology?" Walker asked. "Possibly," Dr. Reed replied. "Or something else is aware we're leaving." The communication screen lit up. Admiral Jones appeared, his face serious. "Walker, our sensors are picking up strange energy patterns. Be careful out there. Whatever's attacking our lost people might know you're coming." Walker nodded. "Understood, Admiral." "Find our lost people," Jones said. "And be careful." The screen went dark. Walker looked at his crew, then at the stars ahead. Lightspeed jump in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engage. The 5 ships of the Thunderbolt fleet stretched forward and vanished into the darkness, leaving only streaks of light behind. Humanity's most powerful warships were on their way to answer the call. The Thunderbolt fleet burst back into normal space with a flash of light. Captain Walker blinked as the main screen adjusted to show their new surroundings. 2 suns hung in the distance, one yellow and one smaller red sun orbiting around it. Arrival successful, First Officer Davis reported. All ships present and accounted for. Dr. Reed worked quickly at her station. Captain, I'm detecting the SOS signal. It's coming from the 3rd planet in this system. Walker nodded. Any signs off? Sir, the sensor officer interrupted. Multiple objects detected ahead. The screen changed to show what looked like a massive field of debris floating in space. Pieces of metal tumbled slowly, some as small as cars, others as big as buildings. Analysis, Walker asked. Ship debris, sir, the officer replied. Hundreds of them, different designs, different technologies. Dr. Reed looked up from her console. This was a battlefield. Walker stood up and walked closer to the screen. How recent? Some debris shows signs of being here for years, the sensor officer said. But some explosions happened very recently, within the last few days. Any signs of survivors? Walker asked. Yes, sir. Small ships moving at the edge of the debris field. Walker turned to communications. Hail them. Minutes passed with no response. Then Dr. Reed spoke up. Captain, one of the ships is approaching us. The screen showed a small vessel moving toward the fleet. It was damaged with burn marks along one side. They're sending a transmission, Dr. Reed said. It's not in any Earth language. Can we translate it? Walker asked. Dr. Reed worked at her station. The computer is attempting to. A strange voice came through the speakers. It sounded insect-like, with clicks and buzzes, but the translation computer converted it to words. Unknown vessels, do not stay here. They will return. They destroy all. Walker leaned forward. This is Captain James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. Who are you? Who will return? More clicks and buzzes. Then, we are Vex, 3rd Alliance species. The harvesters come. They take mines. They destroy bodies. Run while you can. We're here responding to a distress call from the 3rd planet, Walker said. Are there humans there? A pause. Then, human colony. Still fighting. Last stronghold. But harvesters will return soon, with more ships. Walker looked at his officers. Request permission to dock with their vessel. We need more information. The Vex ship hesitated, then agreed. It carefully approached the Vanguard. Through the viewing ports, Walker could see the ship's occupants. Tall, thin beings with 4 arms and insect-like features. Their exoskeletons were a blue-green color. The Vex leader, who called himself Krill, came aboard with 2 guards. They wore breathing masks to handle Earth-normal atmosphere. We fight for 6 of your years, Krill explained in the meeting room. His translated voice sounded tired. Many species joined together, all gone now. Only few Vex remain. He pointed to a star map. Harvesters started here, moved outward, taking all intelligent life. What do they want? Walker asked. They collect minds, Krill said. Upload consciousness. Discard bodies. Dr. Reed frowned. They're after our consciousness. Why? Unknown, Krill answered. But they target planets with most advanced thinking species first. Walker studied the map. The human colony. How strong are their defenses? Strong for small colony, Krill said. Clever humans build good shields, but not enough against Harvester main fleet. He looked at the humans with his compound eyes. They return soon. 1 day, maybe 2. Walker stood up. Then we don't have much time. Dr. Reed, continue monitoring the SOS. We need to make contact with that colony. He turned to First Officer Davis. "Prepare the fleet for battle positions. The Phantom will scout ahead to the colony world." Krill made a clicking sound. "You will fight. 5 ships against Harvester fleet." Walker looked at the alien steadily. "Those are our people down there. We won't abandon them." The Vex leader seemed to study Walker for a moment. Then he said something the translator couldn't process, but the meaning was clear from his posture: respect. As Krill returned to his ship, Walker looked out at the debris field, the graveyard of hundreds of ships that had fought and failed against the Harvesters. "Set course for the 3rd planet," he ordered. "Full alert status." The Thunderbolt fleet moved forward, toward the world where human colonists were making their last stand. The planet grew larger on the main screen as the Thunderbolt fleet approached. It looked like Earth: blue oceans, white clouds, and green-brown land masses. But there were differences too. The continents had strange shapes, and one of the oceans glowed slightly with a blue-green light. "Life signs?" Walker asked. "Concentrated in one area." "Sir," the sensor officer replied. "A large city under some kind of energy shield." Dr. Reed looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm receiving a clear transmission from the surface. It's in English." Walker nodded. "Put it through." A man's face appeared on the screen. He looked to be in his 50s, with dark skin and gray hair cut short. His eyes widened when he saw Walker. "This is Director Thomas Grant of Nova Terra Colony," he said. "Are you from Earth?" Walker stood straighter. "Captain James Walker of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your SOS signal." Grant's face showed shock, then relief. "Earth still exists. After all this time, we thought, we hoped, but weren't sure. We've been looking for the Pathfinder mission for 300 years, Walker said. Everyone thought you were lost." Grant nodded. "We were knocked off course by something. Our ancestors never knew what. They found this world and settled here." His expression darkened. "We built a good life until the Harvesters found us." "We've encountered a Vex ship," Walker said. "They told us about the Harvesters." "The Vex were good allies," Grant replied. "There aren't many left now." He looked over his shoulder as if checking something. "Captain, we don't have much time. Our sensors show the Harvester fleet will return within 20 hours. Can you land a shuttle? There's much to explain." Walker led a small team to the surface. The UES Phantom remained in orbit to provide early warning, while the other ships maintained defensive positions around the planet. The shuttle landed on a flat area near the edge of the massive energy shield. When Walker stepped out, he felt the gravity was slightly lighter than Earth's. The air smelled different too, sweeter, with a hint of something like cinnamon. Director Grant waited with a group of people. Behind them stood a city unlike anything Walker had seen before. Buildings rose in smooth curves, many covered with plants. Solar collectors shaped like leaves captured the light from the binary stars. "Welcome to Nova Terra," Grant said, shaking Walker's hand. "The last human colony in this sector." Grant led them through the shield, a tingling sensation as they passed through, and into a large building in the center of the city. Maps and holographic displays covered the walls. "We were once 7 cities," Grant explained. "Over 5 million people." His face grew sad. "Now only this city remains. Just under 200,000 survivors." Dr. Reed looked at the displays. "You've developed different technology than Earth." Grant nodded. "Necessity and isolation. We had to adapt to this world." He touched a control, and a hologram appeared showing strange ship designs. "These are the Harvesters. They appeared 4 years ago." The hologram changed to show battle footage. Massive ships with long, arm-like extensions attacked cities. Smaller ships swarmed like insects. "They don't take resources or territory," Grant said. "They take people." He pressed another button, and the image showed people being loaded into pods. They scan for brain activity. The more complex the mind, the more they wanted. "What do they do with the people?" Dr. Reed asked. Grant's face hardened. They extract the mind, the consciousness, and discard the body. We don't know why. Walker studied the battle footage. What defenses do you have? Energy shields, some fighters, ground-based weapons, Grant replied. We've held them off 3 times, but each time they return with more ships. He looked at Walker. We developed the Quantum SOS 2 years ago, a desperate attempt to reach Earth, if it still existed. Why did it take so long for us to receive it? Walker asked. The signal had to travel through quantum space, Dr. Reed answered before Grant could. Time works differently there. Grant nodded. We weren't sure anyone would hear it, or come if they did. He looked at Walker. Now you're here, but 5 ships against their fleet. They'll have at least 100 vessels when they return. Walker stood tall. Earth's most advanced warships. Never tested in battle, but built for this kind of fight. Then we have work to do, Grant said. Our scientists have developed something that might help, a weakness in harvester defenses. But we need your ships to deliver it. As they walked deeper into the building to view the weapon, alarm sirens suddenly blared throughout the city. Grant's face went pale. No, it's too soon. A voice came over the city's communication system. Alert. Harvester scout ships detected entering the system. Main fleet following behind. Walker turned to his team. We need to get back to the fleet. Now. The battle for Novaterra was about to begin. Walker's shuttle raced back to the Vanguard, breaking through the atmosphere as red warning lights flashed inside the cabin. Through the viewport, he could see the other ships of the Thunderbolt fleet moving into battle formation. How many enemy ships? Walker asked as he returned to the bridge, still wearing his surface gear. 20 scout ships detected, sir, First Officer Davis reported. Main fleet about 6 hours behind them. They're testing our defenses, Walker said. Prepare all weapons. The Phantom will stay hidden and gather intelligence. The main screen showed the Harvester scout ships. Dark metal vessels shaped like arrowheads with long, spider-like arms extending from their hulls. They're scanning us, Dr. Reed said from her station. Complex energy patterns. I've never seen anything like this. Captain, the communications officer called out. Director Grant is sending data from the surface. Harvester weak points and attack patterns. Walker nodded. Send copies to all ships. What's the status of Novaterra's shield? Holding strong, sir, but their power systems show strain. The Harvester scouts split into 3 groups, moving toward the planet from different angles. They're ignoring us, Davis said with surprise. Walker's eyes narrowed. Not for long. Captain Bell, move the Hammerfall to intercept the first group. Captain Taylor, position Aegis to block the second. Vanguard will take the third. The massive Earth warships moved into position. For a moment, nothing happened. The Harvester scouts paused, as if confused by the interference. They're changing course, sir, Davis reported. All Harvester scouts now heading toward our ships. They've never seen our technology before, Dr. Reed said. We've got their attention. Walker stood tall. Good. Let's show them what Earth's warships can do. All ships, engage at will. The UEA's Hammerfall fired first. Brilliant blue energy beams shot from its forward cannons, striking the lead Harvester scout. The alien ship's shields flared, then collapsed. A second shot tore through its hull, splitting it in half. On the other side of the planet, the UES Aegis extended its defensive field as 3 Harvester scouts fired purple energy weapons at it. The shots were absorbed, and the Aegis returned fire with precision laser arrays that cut through the enemy ships. The Vanguard faced the largest group of scouts. 6 Harvester ships surrounded Walker's vessel, firing from multiple angles. Shields at 85%, Davis reported. Activate point defense systems, Walker ordered. Target their weapon arms first. The Vanguard's hull bristled with smaller weapons that fired in perfect coordination, guided by the ship's tactical eye. One by one, the spider-like arms of the Harvester ships were shot off, spinning away into space. Sir, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the disabled harvesters, Dr. Reed said. They're changing. On the screen, the damaged harvester ships began to transform. Broken sections repaired themselves, and new configurations formed. Adaptive technology, Walker said. Target their central cores. Maximum power. The Vanguard's main cannons fired, striking at the heart of each harvester scout. 5 exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The 6th managed to dodge and accelerated away from the battle. 1 escaping, sir, Davis reported. Let it go, Walker said. It will report to the main fleet. I want them to know what they're facing. Dr. Reed looked up from her console. Captain, I've analyzed the data from the destroyed ships. There's something disturbing. She sent the information to the main screen. Inside each harvester ship were thousands of small containers, each holding a glowing sphere. What are those? Walker asked. Brain patterns, Dr. Reed said quietly. Each sphere contains the consciousness of a captured being. Different species, different patterns, but all stored somehow. Walker's face darkened. They're collecting minds. But why? Just then, a transmission came through from the UES Phantom. Captain Miller's face appeared on screen. Captain Walker, we've infiltrated the edge of the main harvester fleet while cloaked. They're bigger than we thought. At least 200 ships, including a massive command vessel. Walker frowned. Can you send visual? The screen changed to show the approaching harvester armada. Leading them was a colossal ship, easily 10 times the size of the Vanguard. It had a strange, almost organic appearance, with a glowing central section. We also intercepted their communications, Miller continued. They're excited about finding us, calling us prime specimens with exceptional consciousness patterns. Walker turned to Dr. Reed. What does that mean? I think, she said slowly, whatever intelligence controls the harvesters is collecting minds to study consciousness itself, and human minds are particularly interesting to it. The main screen showed the massive harvester fleet growing closer by the minute. We need to speak with Director Grant again, Walker said. If they have a weapon that can exploit harvester weaknesses, we need it now. On the screen, one of the destroyed harvester scouts suddenly exploded with unusual force. The blast released a pulse that temporarily disrupted the Vanguard sensors. What was that? Walker demanded. Some kind of dead man switch, Dr. Reed replied. But it released a signal, directed back toward the edge of the galaxy. Walker felt a chill. They're not just reporting to their fleet. They're reporting to something else. Something bigger. The battle for Nova Terra had only just begun. Captain Walker stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching as the main harvester fleet appeared at the edge of the system. The massive command ship led the way, flanked by hundreds of smaller vessels. All ships report ready, sir, First Officer Davis said. Walker nodded. We're outnumbered 40-1. Have the Nexus distribute Director Grant's weapon data to all ships. On the screen, a diagram appeared showing the Nova Terran weapon, a virus-like program designed to attack the harvester ship's central systems. It targets their consciousness collection system, Dr. Reed explained. If we can upload it to their command ship, it might disable their entire network. And how do we get close enough to upload it? Walker asked. Dr. Reed looked grim. Someone has to physically connect to their main computer core. Walker turned to the communications officer. Get me all ship captains on the line. 4 faces appeared on separate screens, the captains of the other Thunderbolt ships. You've all seen the data, Walker said. We have one chance to stop the harvesters. I need each ship to execute a specific role. He looked at each captain in turn. Captain Miller, the Phantom will use its stealth systems to approach the command ship. Captain Bell, the Hammerfall will create a distraction with full weapons fire. Captain Taylor, the Aegis will extend its shield network to protect Nova Terra. Captain Wilson, the Nexus will coordinate our communications and disrupt the harvester network. And the Vanguard, sir, Captain Bell asked. We'll deliver the virus, Walker replied. Once the Phantom opens a path. The battle began with a flash of light as the Hammerfall unleashed its planet-cracking weapons. 3 harvester ships exploded instantly. The alien fleet paused, then surged forward like angry insects. "They're splitting into attack groups," Davis reported. 4 headed for Novaterra, the rest targeting our ships. The Aegis moved into position above the colony, extending its blue shield to cover the city. Harvester ships fired at it, their purple energy weapons splashing against the shield. Aegis reports shield holding at 80%, the communications officer said. The Nexus hung back, emitting invisible waves that scrambled harvester communications. Captain Wilson's voice came through. "Disruption working. Their coordination is failing." Meanwhile, the Phantom had vanished from all sensors, using its phase-shifting technology to approach the command ship undetected. The Vanguard faced the heart of the harvester fleet. Enemy ships surrounded it, firing from all directions. "Shields at 60%, Davis called out as the bridge shook. 40%. "Divert power from non-essential systems," Walker ordered. "We need to hold until the Phantom is in position." "Sir," the weapons officer shouted. "Harvester ships are adapting to our weapons. Effectiveness dropping." On the screen, Walker could see the harvesters changing their structure, creating new defenses against Earth weapons. "They learn fast," he muttered. "Target their adaptation nodes. Fire all secondary weapons." The Vanguard's hull lit up as hundreds of smaller weapons fired simultaneously. Several harvester ships broke apart under the barrage. "Captain Miller reports ready," Dr. Reed said. "The Phantom is alongside the command ship." Walker nodded. "Begin approach. All ships, execute final phase." The Hammerfall suddenly accelerated, ramming through a line of harvester vessels, creating a path for the Vanguard. The Aegis extended a temporary shield corridor. "Full power to engines," Walker ordered. "Take us through." The Vanguard shot forward, racing down the corridor toward the command ship. Harvester vessels closed in behind it. "The Phantom has breached the command ship's outer hull," Dr. Reed reported. They located a connection point. The Vanguard shuddered as a massive energy beam from the command ship struck its shields. "Shields failing," Davis shouted. "Stay on course," Walker said calmly. "We only need a few more minutes." Another hit rocked the ship. Sparks flew from a console, and emergency lights activated. "Hull breach on deck 3, someone called out. "Sealing now." The Vanguard pushed forward, taking hit after hit. Its once pristine hull was now scared and burning. "We're within range," Dr. Reed said, preparing to transmit the virus. On the screen, Walker could see the massive command ship. At its center was a glowing structure, the consciousness collection core. "The Phantom has opened the connection," Dr. Reed reported. "Uploading now." Walker watched the progress bar on screen. 25%, 40%, 65%. A massive explosion rocked the Vanguard. The lights flickered and died, then emergency power came on. "Direct hit to our main drive," Davis reported. "We're losing power." "Divert everything to the transmission," Walker ordered. "Everything." 90%, 95%. Walker looked out at the battle around them. The Aegis was surrounded by enemy ships, its shields flickering. The Hammerfall's hull was broken in multiple places. The Nexus was barely visible through a cloud of attacking harvester vessels. Then the screen flashed green. Upload complete. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the Harvester command ship's lights began to flicker. The lights on the Harvester command ship flickered, then went dark. For a moment, the massive ship drifted silently in space. Then, one by one, all the Harvester ships froze in place. "It's working," Dr. Reed said, her voice filled with wonder. "The virus is spreading through their network." On the bridge of the damaged Vanguard, Captain Walker watched as the enemy ships stopped attacking. Their weapons powered down, and the spider-like arms hung limp. "All ships, report status," Walker ordered. "Hammerfall here," Captain Bell responded. Heavy damage to main systems. Weapons at 30% capacity. Aegis reporting, came Captain Taylor's voice. Shield generators overloaded. Life support stable. Nexus still operational, Captain Wilson said. Minor hull breaches sealed. There was a pause before the final report came in. Phantom here, Captain Miller said, sounding tired. We're inside the command ship. You need to see this, sir. The main screen changed to show video from inside the harvester vessel. Captain Miller's team moved through dark corridors filled with glowing containers, thousands of them, each holding a pulsing light. The consciousness collection, Dr. Reed whispered. All those minds. There's more, Miller said, and the camera turned to show a massive central chamber. In the middle floated what looked like a brain made of light, pulsing with energy. What is that? Walker asked. Some kind of artificial intelligence, Miller replied. It seems to be the central controller. The virus has trapped it in a loop, but I don't know how long that will last. Walker turned to Dr. Reed. Can we free those trapped consciousnesses? Before she could answer, the lights on the harvester command ship suddenly flashed back on. The virus is failing, Miller shouted. We need tow. His transmission cut off as a massive explosion ripped through the command ship's central section. The artificial brain glowed white-hot for a moment, then shattered into thousands of fragments. All ships target the harvester vessels now, Walker ordered. Full weapons. The remaining Earth warships fired everything they had at the frozen enemy fleet. The Hammerfall's planet-cracking weapons tore through multiple ships at once. The Nexus focused its energy disruptors on the smaller vessels. From the surface of Novaterra, ground-based weapons joined the attack. Brilliant beams of energy shot upward, striking the immobile harvester ships. For several minutes, the space around Novaterra lit up with explosions as the harvester fleet was systematically destroyed. When it was over, only debris remained. Phantom, report. Walker called out urgently. There was no response. Phantom, do you copy? The bridge was silent. Then, a weak signal came through. Vanguard, this is Miller. We made it to an escape pod. Heading your way. Walker let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. Good work, Captain. All ships, stand down to recovery operations. Hours later, Walker stood in Novaterra's main control center with Director Grant. Through the windows, they could see the Thunderbolt ships landed on the surface for repairs. Earth and colony engineers worked together, sharing technology and knowledge. Your fleet saved us, Grant said. We owe you everything. Walker shook his head. We're all human. We take care of our own. Dr. Reed approached with a data tablet. Captain, I've analyzed the data from the Harvester Eye. It was ancient, possibly millions of years old. It was collecting minds to understand consciousness itself. And did it succeed? Walker asked. No, Dr. Reed replied. That's why it kept taking more. It couldn't understand what makes consciousness special. She looked up, but it sent data to somewhere else before it died. I think there are more like it out there. Grant nodded grimly. The harvesters will return. Maybe not soon, but eventually. Then we'll be ready, Walker said. Earth now knows you're here. This won't be the last fleet we send. A communications officer approached. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. They've received our message about finding Novaterra. The main screen lit up showing Admiral Jones. He smiled when he saw Walker. Congratulations, Captain. Earth is celebrating the return of our lost colony. Sir, Walker said, request permission for the Thunderbolt fleet to remain stationed at Novaterra as a permanent defense force. Jones nodded. Already approved. But that's not all. His face grew serious. We're picking up new SOS signals, dozens of them, from all across the nearby sectors, all using variations of the Novaterra quantum code. Walker and Grant exchanged looks of surprise. Other human colonies? Grant asked. Or other species fighting the same enemy? Walker said. He turned back to the screen. Admiral, we'll need more ships. As the two human leaders looked out at the stars, Walker knew that the battle for Nova Terra was just the beginning. Humanity had announced its return to the galaxy, and the Harvesters now knew they had met their match. The SOS that summoned humanity's most advanced warships had changed the future of the galaxy forever.